Right, good evening. Oh, here we go. Yep, good evening. Welcome to the next in the Castaway PVA Lives. Myself and Christian have been asked to do this one, seeing as it's all about fishing abroad, and we'll try and help you get along and see if there's any questions you've got for fishing abroad, anything you want to ask, or we'll chat about how we go about it. So I'll pass the first question over to Christian, which is, do you fish any different to when you go abroad to you do in England?
Well, I do really. Like I say, in England, you kind of, you're going for that, shorter trip. You might have done a bit of pre-baiting, so you kind of know the lakes most of the time. And if you don't know the lakes, you've done a lot of work on them and stuff like that. Whereas like your foreign adventures, there's so much build up to it, the prepping and stuff like that, and you're there for 14 days. You've got a bit of time to work it, bait it and do whatever you want really. So yeah, I'd say that I think my fishing definitely is a big difference to my European fishing to UK. What about yourself, mate?
No, me personally, apart from taking more bait and everything just in case a big hit is on the cards, I tend to fish it a lot very, very similar to I do in England. Rig-wise, definitely. Apart from stepping it up to maybe, size 4, size 2 hooks, sort of 25, 35 pound hook links, drop-off leads, that type of thing. Hook link size, rig, if I can get away with it, is all the same, and it'll always be either a little wafter or a snowman rig, or little PVA bag sort of thing. Baiting up wise, I've never been one for, sometimes you turn up at a lake in France and they want to pile out 10, 20, 30 kilo. I'm very much, I'll fish a little trap to start with, try and get that confidence built, because I find, or what I tell everybody that goes abroad is confidence is the key. I always think if confidence is right, everything else will come on. If you're not, even if you've got the best rig, the best bait, the best everything in the world, if you're not confident about what you're doing, things will start to go wrong. So yeah, apart from carrying a lot more bait and bits and odd little tweaks, I fish very, very similar to what I do in England. Very similar. So, right, next, what's your most memorable trip and fish for you, Christian?
Mine would have to be a trip to Telliets in 2014. It was a crazy week, absolutely mental. I think it was second in the draw. Picked a swim right in the corner, which everybody's like, oh, well, I wouldn't have chosen that, to be honest. Everybody went out on their boats. Everybody went out with their echo finders and all the rest of it. I thought, I'm going to stay away from boats. Let them cause all the commotion. Just did casting, short distances, like 14 wraps, 20 wraps.
Yeah.
Didn't feel too heavy on bait, just kind of for a bite. But ended up with 27 fish. Loads of 30s, loads of 40s. Well, I had everything from 12 double figures, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 64, and a 75 pound common.
Very nice.
So yeah, it was a crazy week. Like I said, the 64 and the 75 was in an hour. 64 was first, and then literally half an hour later, the same rod went off again, and it was a 75.
Very good. Very good.
Crazy. What about yourself, mate?
Probably the two that the fish definitely I think has got to be when I had two-tone out of Pascal's Lake on the Goncourt complex. Yeah. So I mean, we went, I think it was early mid-June that we went on the trip, and it was so blistering hot, and I ended up drawing the one swim down the far end that's got no trees, no cover, no nothing. And it was like 100 degrees, and I just absolutely melted for the whole week. The fish were getting up there, but because I was in a bit of the shallows, they just weren't fit. It was so hot. Whatever I did to put my bait out up in them shallows, they just weren't going to feed. People were having fish further down the lake. So I ended up going out on the boat and I spent 2-3 hours with the prodding stick, just trying to find something a little bit deeper. And just at the back of this bar, there's like a hump. So I fished between the bar and the hump down in the bottom in about 9.5 foot of water. And I've been on top of the bar, I've been on top of the hump, everywhere else that you would normally fish, and nothing. Dropped it into that deeper water, and 2 hours later, away it screamed. And as I say, played it in, bullied it in. It went under my other lines. If I'd have known, there's no way I'd have done it. But bullied it back out of the weed, back out of the thing. I was convinced it was about 30 pound until it went in the net. And even in the net, I thought, oh, that looks a bit of a chunk. And it weren't until I moved the mesh and see the two-tone line, I thought, maybe that's a little bit bigger than I thought. But probably most memorable trip was a couple of years ago, same complex, but on the Bot. And it's known as a bit of a runs water, but it's becoming a runs water with big fish in it, sort of thing. And everything just went right. I just literally, like you said, did different to everybody else. They were piling the bait in. They wanted to, if their swim give them 90 yards, they wanted to fish 90 yards, which I found does seem to be a bit of a trend in France, sort of thing. People want to fish as far as they can, sort of thing. Whether it's because they don't get to do it in England or whatever, but you give them bait boats, give them boats, a lot of people will go right to the extremes of their swims. Yeah. And this one, we was getting set up. I took a friend for the first time to France, so I was helping him more than anything. I fished it a lot of times, set up, and I just flicked my rods 20 yards out. And right from day one, it just went. And I ended up, I think I ended up with something like 47 fish. But I had, like the same, I had doubles, I had 20s, 30s, but I had 17 40s, 5 50s. I had half a dozen cats up to 97, a couple of sturgeon to just over 60, a late record common at 59. So it was just literally little bag, hook baits, flicking them out 20 yards that nobody does. Just drop them in the edge, bit of bait over them, something different, and bingo, trip of a lifetime.
Nice. It's nice when it goes to plan, to be honest, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I've had a lot of ones where they don't go to plan, sort of thing. So
right. We've got another question here. We got, any trips planned for the future? What lakes or rivers would you like to fish abroad, Lee?
Right, trips planned for the future. Well, yeah, definitely. I've already lost, because of the lockdown and everything. I've already lost 2 trips this year that I've got to go to next year. But I suppose I'm in the fortunate place, sort of thing, that my wife doesn't mind coming with me and stuff like that, sort of thing. We haven't got kids or out, so I'm lucky that I get 6-7 weeks a year out in France. So, and because I go to the Goncourt complex a lot, sort of thing, you have to get booked up, sort of thing. Probably one of the things a lot of people don't realise, and you'll be able to sort of say to this, Christian, is when you're reading about some of these good lakes and everything in France and stuff, unless you've been on that lake and fishing it year in, year out as the fish grow, sort of thing, it can take a long time to get on some of these lakes. You know, the waiting list can be 2-3 years in advance, sort of thing. As for where I want to fish, I'd love to have, I'm not sure whether it would be my cup of tea. I know a lot of people knock it and things like that, and a lot of people like it, but I'd like to fish Euro Aqua. Just, it's one of them lakes that I think, just to say that I've done it. I've been there, I've done it, and bits and pieces like that. I've always wanted to fish the river a lot, and I'm lucky that I've got friends that have now got boats on there, so that is one for the future. And the other place is Rainbow. I know a lot of people say you will either love it or hate it. The more I watch about it, the more I think I will. I've sort of put it on the back burner because I want to do other things.
Yeah.
I just think I'm going to, when I do eventually get to go to Rainbow, I think I'm going to fall in love with the place and everywhere else will go out of the window. So that's why I've put it on. But they're the three that I really would like to.
Nice. For me, well, all down to lockdown, really. You know, fingers crossed, maybe ITCAS in October, which would be a lovely trip with Dave and Paul. You know, but fingers crossed. We never know with what's going on at the moment. But on my lists probably would be Sumba next year or the year after. I'd love to fish that place, to be honest, in Croatia. I wouldn't mind. I did River Lot. I did 2 weeks on the River Lot, not last year, the year before. Can't remember now. Loved it. You know, kicked me in the teeth. I hit it during some massive floods. I was using 24 ounces of lead to hold bottom, 12 ounce back leads. I was using 50-pound braid, 50-pound mono shock leaders. Brutal, absolutely brutal. Whole 80-foot oak trees coming down through, swimming, taking out your rods. But yeah, had a few carp and had a few catfish and other stuff. Love the place, but yeah, I'd like to go back and get my comeuppance on it, really, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there's a few lakes around that that's kicked us squarely in the teeth over the years. So it's
also like I say, Rainbow as well. Rainbow's always a dream, but it's you need to be invited onto it rather than trying to get booked onto it kind of place.
Yeah, and I do think Rainbow is that one special place that everybody I've spoken to is go with somebody that's been before. It's not the sort of place to go and fathom out yourself unless you want to do that. But a little bit of help, I think everybody has said, go with somebody that's just so you don't go undergunned and everything like that, to make sure you've got everything that you need. I think the Rainbow.
Definitely.
Right, Paul Richardson. Hello, Paul. Hello. I see Antonia's on. I've not seen any of the other names pop up, but hello to everybody that's joining in. Paul Richardson's got a question for us. He's never fished in Belgium. I don't know whether you have, Christian. He was thinking about fishing the canals in Belgium. Is there one that you would recommend?
So I've never done it. Never done Belgium and never done a canal, to be honest.
Right. I've done canals in France and in Holland. I've only fished a couple of lakes passing through. Sort of years ago when I worked for another company, we was doing a lot of shows sort of thing. So we fished odd places for odd nights. So I can't sort of name a canal in Belgium or anything sort of thing. But from what I've done canal fishing in France and a little bit in Holland is, if you can, go to the local tackle shop where you would get your licenses and everything from. Hopefully they would steer you in the right direction, give you that bit of information that you want, sort of thing. But if not, find somewhere that you can legally fish. Look for boats, look for locks, look for bends, anywhere that you would, like in England on canals, rivers, things like that. Some sort of feature to hold them, unless you particularly can find out that, yes, that stretch has got carp in it, sort of thing, like some of the Dutch sort of thing. And I know, like some of the Belgian canals, they're just straight, they're miles, they're featureless, but they've got massive carp in them, sort of thing. So
it's becoming a lot more accessible now. You see on YouTube now the amount of named anglers as such doing a lot more canal trips and river trips than lakes nowadays.
Yeah,
so I think definitely becoming a bit more mainstream.
No, definitely YouTube and Google and places like that definitely help you more. I think with social media, you've not, like when I first started going to France and everything, it was either what you could glean word of mouth or what you could read in a magazine. Whereas now it's like you can't keep a secret nowadays. Everything's at the touch of a button. It's out there, sort of thing. But But no, sorry, Paul, I can't name one. But I'm sure there's people out there that can help you with ones in Belgium. But if not, find a tackle shop, find your licenses and that. Hope that they point you in the right direction. If not, look for the features that you would look for in England, and that's a starting point.
Yep, definitely.
Right, next one. Kerry Lee's in European public tour, or one lake with a big fish. I'm assuming he means would you fish a big lake for one big fish, or go on the European public tours?
Yeah, sounds like it.
For me personally, like you say, I've done some of the waters and done bits and pieces like that sort of thing, but I've got a few friends now that's moved to France, and I'm starting to veer away to fishing some of the public waters and bits and pieces. And the thing with public waters is you don't know. It's a little bit of an unknown again. A friend of mine, just a quick example, a friend of mine lives in the south of France, and he'd got a water near him, about 250, 300 acres. Go down there for an afternoon, catch 4, 5, 6 doubles, a few 20s, maybe an odd 30. And it had been like that for years, sort of thing. A good place to go, get a few runs, go home in the evening, have your food. You didn't have to stay there all long. All of a sudden, threw up a 78, which nobody knew about. So on that one, it's the unknown thing that I like. So if it was me and I had to pick, I would do a little bit of research. Most of the public lakes out there have got carp and everything in and stuff like that. Do a little research, pick the one that you want, and go and have a bit of an event. At the end of the day, it's our hobby sort of thing. We're not doing it for any particular reason apart from it's our hobby sort of thing. And going to France, you've got to think most people that go to France only go for a week or a fortnight as a holiday.
Yeah.
So if you can get one of these public lakes that's got a bit of other stuff going on, a campsite, you can go and do a few days. You've got it all rolled into one, and you don't know what's in there. You could end up with a surprise sort of thing. So what would you do on that one, Christian?
Evening sleazy, I'd like to say. I don't know, it's an hard one. I probably wouldn't do a European tour. I'd probably do a Croatia, Slovenia tour.
Oh,
yeah, the bloke who I fished with in Croatia last year, he did exactly that. He did 6 weeks out there.
Oh.
And he just pinged around every big fish water there was, pretty much. I think he did 4 weeks on Sumba. He did 1 week on Zachary with me. He just pinged around. I think he only had about 40 odd, 50 plus fish over all the lakes he fished and stuff like that. So I think I'd like to do it, but I do I'm a stickler for a big fish. Yeah. I'd rather blank 7 days and have a chance of something really special. 80 plus for me now. I'd love something 80 plus. So I don't know. It's an hard one. Definitely a hard one.
Right, let's have a look. Now, David, do you prefer fishing known waters or lakes that's not really known? So both home and abroad, Christian. Do you fish known waters or unknown?
Home. Well, what lake isn't unknown in the UK now, to be honest? When we come out of lockdown, I've got a nice big Waysbury 1 ticket waiting for me. So you couldn't be more named if you tried, to be honest, on that front.
Yeah.
But then I've got a nice secret, syndicate on, where I live and stuff like that. So I do like, the kind of bit secluded kind of lakes as well. Whereas abroad, I don't know, you go all that way and spend a lot of money. I do like to know a lot of information about some lakes. I don't know whether I could sit in an open sea of 1,000 hectares with maybe there's carp in here or maybe they've been eaten.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I'd fancy that, to be honest.
Yeah, and from my point of view, England, I'm getting more to fishing. Like you say, the waters are probably known, but evening, Mark. The waters that I fish in England are known, but they're probably not known as carp waters.
Yeah.
So that little air of mystery where I'm the one that will go out and risk doing the groundwork, if you know what I mean, sort of thing. So there's water there that several people have been talking about for a few years, but nobody dare have a go because they don't know. I'll go out and do that sort of thing. Especially for my English fishing now, I like to keep away from the crowds, doing just doing my own thing sort of thing. Whereas France, it's probably 50-50 sort of thing. A bit like yourself. I'm fishing for the bigger fish now. Sort of thing. I like to. I'm sort of like trying to target 70s, 80s, if possible. That's what sort of got me the Euro aqua. You know what I mean? I'd like to just say I've been once, had a go, and if I'm lucky enough to catch one of them big ones, some people might knock you, some people might not. But at the end of the day, again, it's it's a fish. It swims. You've got to catch it. Some people say they're sort of like not ethically right the way he feeds for them and stuff like that. But, you know, I go fishing to catch a carp. I go fishing to catch the biggest carp that I possibly can. So, me personally, I don't care where it comes from.
Most of the big fish waters, they feed them. Most of the UK waters with big fish in it, they feed them. You know, they're seeing so much bait. You know, the Europeans and stuff, they do it on a whole different level of how they look after their lakes to how they do in England. You know, they can get hold of the fish a lot easier, you know, but that's why they've got the big fish over there as such.
Yeah.
But, you know, over the years, you know, think how long we've been going abroad and stuff. You know, we've done the runs waters. We've done the, you know, go on the coach trips with loads of people you don't know, all drunk and all the rest of it, and turn up to a lake and you're bashing out doubles and there's 140 in the lake and you're excited about that. So I've kind of been there, done that, and I want to work my way up and up and up as such.
Yeah, definitely. But I do like that 1 week, as I say, because I'm in the lucky situation. I get to go a few times a year. I do like that 1 week a year. That's a bit of an adventure sort of thing. You know, you go into somewhere that's maybe 1,000 acres. You've got to go out on your boat, and you're hoping that there's carp in there, or people have told you, or you've seen pictures, but you don't know whether there's 100 carp, 1,000 carp. Is the biggest 30-pound? Is it that little unknown thing? Is it? I do like my little adventure once or twice a year, sort of thing.
Well, here's a prime question on the next one. Either of you battled Lac de Dare? If so, how did you get on? I've not. I don't know about yourself, but that is jumping in the deep end as such, isn't it?
Yeah, that place is massive. I've fished it once quite a lot of years ago, and I probably had the smallest carp ever to swim around in the place. I reeled it in, and it wasn't till I actually, even in the water, I've reeled it in, and I'm like, I've lost it. And then I'm like, I've come all this way, and I've caught a bream. And when I picked it out of the water, it was one of them little silver common carp.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's quite cloudy in there. They're quite pale. And it was about £2. And it worked. I actually picked it out of the water that I realised it was a carp. So, but it is somewhere that is definitely on my radar. The complex that I fish in France is only literally sort of like 10, 20 minutes down the road. So I do go and look at it, and it is somewhere that will definitely be on my radar in the next couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you got another question, the same sort of thing again. It's any of you lads done chantecoq or the orient? Known a few lads who get every year and love the extreme. It's those three in it. Chantecoq, orient, and Lac de Dare are kind of the big waters. Yeah, I'd love to, but you need to be well prepared, and you know, you can't just grab your stuff out the your English kit out of the van and go, right, I'm going to go on chantecoq. It wouldn't work.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. As I say, I've done chantecoq once. I've done orient a couple of times, but again, travelling through, I've only done short sessions. You know, so you can't really. I've done a 3 and a 5 day session on there, and I've had half a dozen. I've had half a dozen tench, no carp sort of thing, but they're my sort of fishing now. And again, it's one of them. If you only get to go once a year and that's your fishing holiday, yeah. you want to be catching and things like that. You don't want to be, unless you really like that sort of thing. Yeah. But I like a bit of both, to be honest. I like the places. I go to one place, it's got carp to over 80 pound in it, but I can take the wife. The house is right next to the lake. She gets everything, watches telly and everything. And I look at it that she's got all the mod cons, so I get an extra week in France. Sort of thing. So that goes down well. But I do, like I say, once, twice a year, I do like that adventure, extreme, loading up on boats, you know, fishing in the middle of nowhere or fishing out on the boat and stuff, sort of thing. A friend of mine, he fishes chantecoq quite a bit, and he actually fishes. He only fishes days, and he goes down there, parks his van up, gets in his boat, and he just takes 3 rods and everything he needs in his boat, just drives round, sort of thing, boats off round, finds some clear spots, baits them up, then goes back to them, and if he sees any activity, and he just literally fishes out of the boat. And he does really, really well out of there. So it just shows you something different again. But yeah, I do like that bit of an adventure now and again.
Don't get me wrong. If I did have, like I say, if I did have the spare time and stuff like that, I think I would just disappear for a month and go to somewhere like one of those lakes, you know, and spend a bit of time. It would be lovely, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. If I ever got the chance, like you say, if I ever got the chance to go out there, I know I go quite a lot to France, but if I ever got to go for a big block, then I would probably sort of not jump around. I'd pick one of them big lakes and say, right, this is my opportunity, and fish sort of 4-8 weeks on one of them lakes and really go at doing the adventure type thing. So, right, moving on. We've got one here now. See what you think, Christian. Does water temperature change the dissolve times on the mesh and solid bags? What's your...
I don't use a lot of solid bags, to be honest. I've been teaching myself a lot more at the moment because I've been fishing Waysbury when we come out of lockdown, which is renowned for being really weedy. Yeah. But I use mesh a lot. I find when I fish abroad, even in Croatia, I was still, when I cast out, using tiny little 1-inch sticks, threaded down the hook link, just to mask the hook, you know, but I use quite an oily mix. And I always think that helps when you're fishing abroad and stuff. It just, and where you make up so many in advance kind of thing while you're on the bank, you know, all the oils leak into the PVA mesh. And like I say, I think it helps and stuff when you're abroad and stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure. It's the depth of the water. I find a lot of the waters I fish abroad are quite deep.
Yeah, I would say I fished shallow, deep, everything sort of thing out there, and I think temperature does it does affect the dissolve time, but I don't think it does it too much, if you know what I mean, to affect fishing too much. You know, I mean, I fish in the winter, I fish in the summer and everything. You cast out, you cast in the wrong place, sort of thing, with a mesh bag. Very rarely do you reel in and it's still there, sort of thing. Different.
No, you might have a bit of remnants of a little bit of mesh or whatever's in it, kind of thing around it, but it's pretty much gone, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I think the only time the changes time is when you start sort of like double bagging and things like that sort of thing. And I've never had no problems. I use a PVA bag sort of thing every time I sort of like cast out, because of the way I fish. I've got a couple tied up here. I fish long hook links, whether I'm in England, in France, or anywhere sort of thing. I use an 18 to 24 inch hook link all the time, wherever I fit. Yeah, a big long. And over the years, my thinking behind it, I know people look at me and they go, "Are you zig fishing or are you doing this?" And I'm like, "No, just bottom baits." I think when you start thinking of how a big fish feeds, when you start talking about the big fish that like we're fishing for now and stuff, where the bottom of that fish is, where its belly is, and where its mouth is, sort of thing. If it's horizontal in the water, right. Yeah, it's.
I'll demonstrate with a carp. It is, yeah, a say the rig's here, and it goes along. The distance between straightening the hook link is, like I say, is 18 inches, 24 inches with a big fish.
Exactly, and you get the shape of some of these really big fish with the round bellies and that. They've virtually got to be stood on their heads, sort of thing, to suck in a short. Now, I know I'm not knocking short rigs, chod rigs, they catch lots of fish. But just, again, it's a confidence thing. I wouldn't feel confident fishing a choddy. Whereas there's people out there that look at my rigs and go, "Whoa, too much there, you know, there's too much for them to get away with." Well, if I've got a few fish getting away with it, what I catch in a year sort of thing, that'll do me. So
you got a rig hand, mate?
I have. Here we go. And if you can see this, that's my standard rig. If I can get it in front of the camera for you.
Quite a long hair then.
So yeah, quite a long hair. What I normally do is I'm fishing a snowman there, and that's an 18 mil bottom bait. So what I normally do, whatever size bottom bait I'm fishing with, whether it be a 12 mil, a 16, 224s, I will put an extra bait on there. So just here near the hook, I will have put that little pop-up on, 2 18 mils, pull the hair to the bottom of the hook, tie the knotless knot, then I take the first bait off again. So I've got the same size gap as the bait. But then when you look at actual hook link sort of thing, I mean, that hook link there, as you can see, if I get it there, yeah, an 18, 20 inch hook link for me sort of thing. But the one thing that I do is, because I fish with a long hook link, I always fish, to stop tangles and that, is a little mesh bag.
Oh yeah.
And just about the size of a 20 mil boilie, few pellets. But the one thing that I do, and I've done a little bit of thinking about this for anybody that uses sort of like PVA bags and that, a lot of the time, if you get your PVA bag and you just nick the hook into the PVA bag, the force of that lead, you've got to think that's probably doing, I don't know, 20, 30 mile an hour as it hits the water. So the drag back, a lot of the time, you think you're fishing with a little tiny bag, but half the time, as that hits the water under speed, it pops off. So your hook bait will go down, but that won't. Your PVA bag will be away. So a little trick that I've done, and I've done casting out, going out in the boat and having a look, I put a foam nugget down my PVA tube first.
Yep.
Push that into the bottom of your bag, put your few pellets in, so that bag, and then when I put it onto the hook, I pull the hook through the mesh bag, through the PVA nugget, out the PVA nugget, and then out of the bag. So it sits on like that. And that little bit of extra PVA and stuff in there just stops that bag popping off if you're casting a long way. Obviously, if you're dropping from a boat or anything, then it doesn't matter. But it's just a little way. It's, again, a confidence thing. I know with that little bag of pellets is going to be around my hook bait, and it's not going to have tangled. So that's one little tip that I do fishing with the long rigs.
See, we it's quite good how we differ, to be honest, because you've got a nice long hair and a nice long hook link, whereas mine is, I'd say, 10 inches. I'd say there.
Yeah.
But if you can see, I used the German rig, so I couldn't use a shorter hair if you tried.
No.
You know, you couldn't be any close if you tried. There's no coming away from it. But I used the braid straight away through. There's a size 2. This is the rig I used in Croatia.
Yeah.
You know, so there's 2 20mm boilies, a size 2 hook, 35-pound hook link, and about 10 inches. But then what I do, if I'm dropping from a boat or a bait boat, for instance, I use quite a long, I'd say that's about 5 inches, but it's quite solid, you know, stands bolt upright, it's quite stiff, and I'll thread that
all the way down.
Picture all the way down. Like yourself, I see too many people nicking it on the end. That's not staying on there.
No, I really don't think so. And like I say, I've done it where
like you say, like that. Then I know that half of my hook link is nice and straight. I'm not worried about a couple of inches, if anything.
Yeah.
You know, but another rig that I did try in Croatia, which I jumped on the bandwagon, which I always thought if I caught lots of fish in a lake, I'd give it a go. And I did. And it did get me some bigger fish. Is the old... Oh, trying to get on the camera. There we go. The old bollocks rig.
Yeah. It's quite funny you should say that, because if there's any of the lads from my team are watching this, that was the rig I was going to show them. I've used that rig quite a lot. So do you use, now this is an interesting question for you, Christian. On that rig, what baits do you, I only use it with bottom baits. I don't use it with wafters or pop-ups or anything. Have you tried it, or do you fish it with them?
I only fish it with wafters.
Right.
Never tried it with bottom baits. Always fished it with wafters, and it pretty much lays on the bottom like that, and they just hover. Trying to go there. There we go. They just hover like that.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. They kind of tilt at an angle. But you wouldn't think that sideways. There we go. But like I say, I tried it in Croatia for the first time, and it was. I was getting pestered by, it sounds bad, I was getting pestered by 30s. Couldn't stop catching. But on a lake where there's 45, 70s and all the rest of it and stuff, and fish to 100 pounds, I was like, oh God, I was catching so many fish. I thought, right, I'm going to try it. But yeah, the hook holds were crazy, absolutely crazy. Like I say, use a supple, you know, it's like a uncoated braid, you know, like a leader, really, leading material. I use like a 45-pound, like a submerged leader. But it's just when, like I say, when you actually get hooked, it all pulls down like a big multi-rig, really. And the hook's completely away from everything. But yeah, it's a funny rig, but it did get me bigger fish. And I did have my 60, what was it in Croatia? 62, 63? But yeah. But I've not had the confidence to try in this country yet. I need to.
I've had a few fish in this country on it, but it's one of them that I've not really shown anybody it, because I'm still not 100% confident in it, if you know. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had fish to over 50 pound on it, but I've been fishing it virtually how you fish it there, but I use a smaller swivel on the hair. I use the hook ring swivels, the really tiny ones. But I've been fishing it with 2 tiger nuts. Push a tiger nut on either side, and just fishing it flat on the bottom. And yeah, been doing really well on it, sort of thing. So,
nice.
But while we're on rigs, as I say, the only other rig that I do use now and again, sort of thing, I do use shorter hairs now and again, but only when I'm using a wafter. Yeah. If you can see that.
Oh, yeah.
just basically a multi-rig with a wafter.
Yeah.
But what I will do is, I'm lucky enough I can go down and make my wafters myself. So I tie up a rig, put a bit of the wafter, roller wafter, put it on it, drop it in a piece of glass. So I know a size 4 mugger and a metal skewer will sink to the bottom, but the pop-up will stand upright, sort of thing. And that's, but again, it's, do you find you change what you use to what you're baiting with?
I don't know. I'm a big boilie angler, but over, like, when I went to Croatia, because it was one of those waters where you have to just feed and feed and feed and feed. You couldn't just use boilies. You couldn't afford to use boilies. You know, I got through nearly 260 kilo of boilie, pellet, and particle. But I was finding, because it was quite a big commercial. Well, I don't know. I think it was about 65 acres. I think the lake was, and there was, every swim was a double swim, but everybody just spotted all day long. They actually banned spodding at night time in Croatia. You're not allowed to spot as soon as dusk happens. You're not allowed to spot.
Oh,
and
right.
You're only allowed to spot again when it's daylight of this lake. And it was weird, but when we had special permission, so everybody was like, got to spot at night time. So you just didn't stop. Pretty much, if you sat down, like you said earlier on when we were chatting, you know, sat down, you have a drink or whatever, have something to eat, you stand up, right, I'll do a few spods. You know, you tie a rig, right, I'll do a few spods. It was just constant all day, every day and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I was fine. I always fish boilies on my rigs. I've never gone down the particle, you know, the plastic sweet corn and stuff like that, and, you know, finding it down to the particles. Most of what was I fish, tiger nuts are banned as well. So,
yeah,
you know, I'd love to try them. I must admit, I fished one lake, Charlot it was called, in France, and everybody was fishing boilies. Everybody was struggling. In the end, I was fishing, I think it was about 100 yards to this like gravel slope, and I'm not joking when it was probably 50 seeds of hemp. It was 2 tiger nuts. I was crushing them in my mouth, and then it was a tiger nut and a piece of corn on the hair, and I come out last in the draw and ended up being top rod and having loads of 40s, a few 30s, and a few 20s.
Yeah,
but then it goes to show.
Yeah, I've done that a few times. Come out last. I think sometimes coming out last in the draw, sort of thing, you've got nothing to lose. So I found you end up trying different things because you've tried something different. It's worked. Yeah.
And everybody runs off to their swims, don't they? Whereas if there were, say, there's 2-3 swims left, you can spend, like you would normally do in the UK, you would walk the lake 3-4 times. And then, like I say, I've done quite well coming out last, but I am a jammy git and do come out quite often first or second, which most of my mates remind me about quite a lot.
I'm totally the opposite. I think in all the years I've been coming, I've come out first once, sort of thing. And apart from that, then no. But going back to the rigs, I've just found I use the Snowman rig. I'm a bit like yourself. I'm mainly a boilie angler. Yeah. That Snowman bottom bait rig sort of thing. The only time I use the wafter is if it's getting a little bit hard and I'm having to introduce a little bit of particle pellets that get them grubbing around a little bit more, I'll change to the wafter. But otherwise, I want it to look as natural as everything else that they're picking up. So if you've got 5,000 18mm boilies on the bottom, you don't want 2 bits of corn or something stuck in the middle. No. Might be that quick bite, but once they become used to picking up all them boilies, that's what they're going to eat. So,
well, a funny example, when I was in Croatia, I thought, right, I'm going to try for a real big fish here. Tie myself up a German rig, and I can't remember now. I think it was 4 24mm baits, bottom baits on, and an 18mm pop-up. It was like that long of hook baits. Chucked it out, 16 pounds, smallest fish I had all week.
Yeah.
I waffed my hand in the edge and it didn't even move. There was no you couldn't even move the bait. It was that heavy.
Heavy.
6 pounder, sucked it up, perfectly hooked bottom lip.
Oh dear. Right, let's move on to another one. Right, what we got here? Right, under what conditions, or have you ever double bagged or double meshed?
Yeah. Me personally, I've double meshed before when it's been really hot. When I went to Gran Canaria, I fished the lake in Gran Canaria in the volcano, which was amazing.
Yeah.
But that was crazy deep. You know, you're talking, we were fishing the margins, and I think even the margins were 20 meters. But in the daytime, it was 41 degrees in the daytime.
Cool.
And the water was literally hotter than bath water. So, and I was thinking, right, I wanted a better bag with it. So I actually triple did it.
Yeah.
I went over it once, tied a knot, went back again, tied a knot, you know, and then went back on itself. And yeah, it seemed to kind of last that depth, because it was, even like I say, I dived in at one point just to have a swim, and I thought I'll have a dive down to see what it's like a bit further down. And you know, when it goes dark,
yeah,
it was still tropical. You know, and that was a good 20 foot down, and I was thinking, well, yeah, hang on, you know. But I've normally, like I say, I've never really had a problem in this country. I fish lakes that are on average between 13 and 15 foot deep, quite a few of them, and I've never had to double mesh bag. But I don't know, I don't really use solid bags, so, which I'm going to be going on to. But what about yourself, mate?
To be honest, the only time I have is when I was lucky enough to be on Elstow. So a lot of the places on Elstow, you was like could have up to 30, 40 foot deep there. Now you was trying to find 15, 18 foot bars and stuff like that, but occasionally you was fishing in the deep water. So that's the only time. But to be honest, I didn't go into any scientific way of doing it. Literally all I was doing was making a PVA mesh bag, dropping it inside of a solid bag, and then I was using the Castaway cable ties.
Oh yeah.
Cable tie the bag up, and then just nicking my hook underneath the cable tie, and casting that out just to help and cut the two corners off the bag to let the air out. Just to hope that bag would get down that 30 odd foot before it burst. Now I didn't mind if it burst open 2 foot, 3 foot from the bottom. I wasn't that bothered about, because it weren't going to spread that much. Yeah. But if your bag's burst in sort of like 10 foot down, I think they say something like for every 2 or 3 foot you go down, it goes out a foot.
Yeah.
So if you're going down 30 foot, you're going to make a 10 foot circle, which I didn't want. So that's the only time I've really thought about sort of double bagging sort of thing. So, right, let's have a look. Right, we've got one here. Oh, I think this is from a mate of mine, Scott. All of my fishing is done with stick mixes and small bags. So this might be down for you, Christian, using this sort. Stick mixes and small bags. He's never had to fish over big beds of bait on small waters and stuff. Is there anything that you would do to enhance what you're putting in that bag, or like stick?
I love, absolutely obsessed with liquids. No matter what liquids they are, you know, the bait company I'm with, any new liquids, I love to just try liquids out, seeing if they work. My stick mix, I'm trying to think, I've got one here. I love putting lots of liquids in. I can't think, no matter how big a bag or how small a bag, if you can play around with your liquids a little bit more, you know, you're just trying to pull them down for that one night. And also I've done quite well before with fishing 1-inch PVA sticks. And if you're fishing, say, throwing distance, I've cast out before, little stick on a real pokey stick on the actual hook link, cast it out. I think it was 8 wraps, I think it was, not even hardly any distance at all out. But then I catapulted another 10 sticks around it. So you can imagine on the bottom, you've just got 11 little patches, all identical to what you've just catapulted out. Even in the stick, I put 1 boilie. So every single stick had 1 boilie in it, including the one that you had.
Oh, no, we're back again. It's all right. I don't know what happened there.
Are you back in the room? Oh, losing you.
Yeah, I've done sort of similar sort of thing. I don't fish with sticks. I don't fish with stick tops.
No.
Yeah, I'm here. Are you?
Yes, I think we're glitching a bit. Yeah, not too sure what's going on, but yeah, that's what I've done in the past with sticks and stuff. I've tried to make it that little bit different. Fishing, just try and do something a little bit different that you think will entice a bite, whether it's in injecting oils or dipping it. Always try something different.
Yeah, I think we're back and we're all right again now,
yeah.
Sort of thing. I don't really use stick mixes, sort of thing. I use a lot of pellet because, like I say, because of the rig that I use, I've always got that little bag of pellet on. The 2 liquids that I use, and that's about it, sort of thing, is being a chef. I get to the kitchens and that I go to and places I'm working. I save the juice out of the tins of tuna.
Nice.
And I save all them up, put them in a big tubs, and I freeze them. But what I'll do then is I'll take like a kilo of pellet out, put like a pint of the tuna juice in, and let the pellet soak all that in. And then I use them pellets in my little bags that give you a little leak off. The only other one really, and I don't, to be honest, I don't use bags or anything, is I use molasses. I use molasses an awful lot, and because it's heavier than water, places in France and everything, if I can use a rowing boat, I'll just go out, I'll drop my rig and my handful of bait or whatever on the spot, and then I literally just pour the molasses straight out the back of the boat.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know, because the syrup is heavier than water, the viscosity of it, it'll just go bang straight to the bottom and it leaches. So even if you get eaten out, them fish will still come back to your area, sort of thing.
Yeah, with the liquid front, remember the old spods? Remember the old solid spods? With no holes in and stuff. Well, I used to have a bucket of water, and I used to pour, like the boilie I was using at the time, I used to pour the liquid into the bucket, and then every time you filled your boilies up, you used to dip your spod, to get a bit more weight, but it used to be the liquid in the water and then cast out.
Yeah.
You're casting out flavoured water, really.
Yeah, I do
well on that.
Yeah, that's what I was doing when I was at Teliats, sort of thing. Because they said to us at Teliats, there was no real features. Your bait was your feature. Right. And what they used to say was, don't reel in. Them fish will come in and eat, but normally after a few days.
Yeah.
So what I started doing going out there was about 3 days before I'd go, I would soak 10 kilo of boilies in rainwater at home, then take that with me. So if you like, my boilies were already 3 days in front of everybody else's, looking like they've been in the lake for a while. But all I used to do was the same. I'd have three little buckets, and I could get about 5 kilo in each bucket.
Yeah.
And as soon as we got there, I'd go out, but I would pour the boilies, the water, and everything straight in over my spot. And then as soon as I come in, I would put another 5 kilo in each of them buckets and leave them until I got a take, sort of thing. And it's the one place that I've been to where there was one chap on our trip. I used to say to him, how often, you know, trying to glean a bit of information, how often do you cast out and things? And he went, I find my spot, I cast out on the Saturday when I get here. If I don't get a take, I reel in on the Saturday when I go home. And his rods would stay out for 7 days if he didn't bite, sort of thing. And all the fish I had out of Teliats, all my baits had had at least 48 hours in the water before I got a take.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So yeah, I think I think it was Scott. As for attraction, just whatever you can soak your pellets, soak your things in, and bits and pieces, just as much liquids as you can, sort of thing. Right, next one, baiting tactics, little and often or fill it in. This chap.
We both differ on this, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. I think what we were saying earlier, we both use sort of the same amount of bait, but you're a turn up and put the bait in and fish on the bait, whereas I'm more matchman. I might put, unless somebody specifically says to me, you need to turn up here and put 10 kilo in, then I will do. But I'm very much, I'll have a bucket next to my rods and my throwing stick. And every time I come out of the bivvy, I'll put 50 boilies in to start with. And every time I come out of my bivvy, whether it's to go to the toilet, make a cup of tea or something, 20 baits over each spot. So whereas you were saying you might put 10, 5, 10, 15 kilo out, I might use 5, 10 kilo of boilies in a day over a rod, but it'll go out over the 24 hours rather than in one go.
It's kind of, well, you just judging it as such. Like, prime example, I did 2 different things. Teliats in France, it turned into a joke that I would throw and stick out 70 baits, and when my mate came down and said, why are you doing 70 baits? And I got religious counting out 70 baits, and I said, well, 70 baits for a 70. And on the Thursday, like I said, every time got up with bivvy, every time I went to the toilet, I put 70 baits out. Even if I dropped one in the lake, I'd go back to the bag, pick up a bait, and then put 70 baits out. But on the Thursday, I had a 75. You know, and it was quite comical. But then Croatia, we got told, put it in. You could put in as much as you want, you still won't put in enough. So on day dot, I turned up and I put, what did I put? I think it was 60k I put out to start off with on 2 rods, and I put 20k on the 3rd rod. And that was just on the first afternoon. And then it was just constant, you know, just spotting. And I did 260k in the end of particle, pellet and boilie. And my arms recovered about a month afterwards.
I bet. I mean, I've used 300 kilo in a week sort of thing, but not sort of like you did it. We was just half a kilo per rod per fish. And
but it's like I say, it's made like when I did 70 boilies every time with a throwing stick, I still did 80 kilo that week.
Yeah,
you know, it's amazing. You don't think it's that much, but you know, it was that constant trickle, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a question I get asked quite a lot all the time is, how much bait do you think I should take to France? How much bait should I take? And
what you think, double it.
Yeah, definitely, if not more. And I'm always sort of like, take more than you need. You can always bring it back, put it in this big myth as well about don't refreeze. I'm a big believer. Like I say, I don't think it matters how many times you freeze your bait. So as long as it's not gone off, as long as if your bait gets like white fluffy bits on, that mold is penicillin is proteins basically. So the way if a bait goes sour and it goes sticky and like green, then I will throw it away. It's no good. But most of the time, if you've air dried it or anything like that sort of thing, if you don't use it, take it home. But the last thing, as I always say to everybody, you take 20 kilo with you and you're having the trip of a lifetime and you run out of bait on the Tuesday, Wednesday, and you can't get any, sort of thing. You've turned a great trip that could have been a fantastic mega trip because you've run out. Always take it, whatever you think, sort of thing, like you say, double it. And my big thing is, I always say to people, work on 1 kilo of bait per rod per day. So if you've got 3 rods, you want to take 21 kilo of bait, sort of thing, even if you're not catching. And I always look at it, half a kilo to start with. I put half a kilo out on each rod. Then if I catch a fish, I put another half a kilo. So if you've got 4 rods out, sort of thing, you've got 4 rods and you catch 3 fish on the first night, that's already 3.5 kilo. Yeah. So then the next night, you catch a couple more fish. You start times in 4 kilo by a day, you're not long getting through 20, 25 kilo of bait. So yeah, like you say, definitely think what you think.
People worry about bait going abroad, but like I said earlier on about liquids, you know, if you're that worried, you know, as soon as you get to the lake, coat all your baits with liquid and stuff like that. They soak it up, and then the longevity of the bait just doubles. You know, you don't have to worry about it and stuff like that. But, you know, people worry about putting too much bait in. And even in the UK, last year, in 24 hours, I had 7 carp on my syndicate. I used 25k, but I had it in my van just in case. I only took 5k with me to, you know, actually to the swim, but I had it in my van. Ended up using all of it. But, you know, I had three high 30s, I had 2 40s, you know, a load of 20s, and it was like 20 hours, I reckon it was, just carnage. Just couldn't stop putting the bait. You know, the rod was going off as the spod was hitting the surface, you know, but, you know, people that turn up with a kilo bag, or I've seen people go to France with 20 kilo and then they've done it by Sunday and then they're going, oh, I'm going to fish singles for the rest of the week.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like you say, any liquid, as long as you've coated the outside of that boilie until it's soaked it back in again. So if you coat it every couple of days, they're not going to go off. So, or the other way around it is just go to Morrison's, go to anywhere like that, and buy your cheap table salt. Costs you like 25 pence for a kilo, and 1 kilo will preserve, as long as you keep shaking them about, a 5 kilo bag. I'll open the bag, open it, you know, these resealable bags, open a 5 kilo bag, pour a kilo bag of salt in that's cost you like 20 pence, seal the bag back up, and just keep shaking them every day. And if nothing else, the salt attracts fish as well. So you've got a bit of a double whammy there. So definitely the 2 ways, I think, of preserving and looking after your bait, sort of thing, in that situation. Right, let's have a look at the next one. Here's one for you, Christian.
All right.
Use.
Oh, you're glitching again. Oh. Don't know where you're going.
There we go. Back again.
Sorry.
I've gone now.
Oh.
Right. Any situation abroad, you would use our PVA rig tubes.
If used, your opinion of giving an extra edge. I have used them abroad actually, and I tried them out. God, I think when Dave first brought them out, to be honest, and I was threading them down the hook link. I was then licking one end, so sealing it, and then I was pumping liquid with a syringe the whole length of the tube, and then I was sealing the other end. So yeah, you've got the rig properties of keeping your hook link straight if you want to use a supple hook link, for instance, or even a coated hook link. But then also, once it's melted, you've got that added attraction of the liquids being inside the tube as well. But I have used them abroad, yeah.
Yeah, as I say, I've used them a couple of times, sort of thing. But I've always used mine the other way round. If I'm using a supple hook link, I've always put a couple on and shoved it back onto the swivel.
Oh yeah,
on the swivel end, and used it like a bit of an anti-tangle boom off my helicopter rig.
Nice.
Sort of thing. So it comes off, and fished it that way round rather than the hook end sort of thing. But I've never thought about like you said, sealing them up and putting liquid in. That's learnt me something as well now.
Yeah, no, like I say, just thread it down just before the eye. You just kind of lick it and stick it. Just pinch it really tight. And then, like I say, just get a syringe, or you can even just pour it in. And like I say, any liquid you like, really, and then seal up the other end. And like I say, if you want to fish single hook baits, then you've got a single hook bait, but then loads of liquid attraction.
Yeah, definitely. Right, here's it now. This is a good one. See what? Because I've got one particular. This reminds me of something that I see and somebody told me. Are there any things that you should or shouldn't do with PVA on your rigs? And do you think certain PVA leaves a detrimental residue?
For me, it's people using PVA nuggets. I love nuggets. I don't think I ever cut. I'm one of these people that always use them and always have, kind of thing. But you see people that they get one nugget and they put it over, they fold it in half over the hook, and then they fold it again, and then they squish it together so it goes flat.
Yeah.
And then they cast out, and then 24 hours they reel in, and it's still there. And you're thinking, well, what are you doing? You know, because they're trying to save, or even cutting the nugget in half, and because they want to not buy any more nuggets. You know, I use 2 nuggets. I gently, nick them between the 2 nuggets, and I lightly moisten 2 bits on the end, and then put them together and make a little sandwich. And literally just the tiniest pinch. And then as soon as I cast out, it hits the bottom, I can count to 2. They've popped up to the surface.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to be squeezing the hell out of them, and you're just making it worse for yourself. Same with when I've used solid bags. I use cable ties now. They're a godsend. You can get a solid bag, literally like a house brick. But the good old days of using a tape, I remember the old Nashi bags. We're talking 25 years ago. Luminous green PVA bags they were.
Yeah.
And you used to, they were like shiny, weren't they? And you used to put the tape around them, big blob of tape around the top, tie off, load a few granny knots. And I remember reeling in after 24 hours and having the whole entire lot still on the end.
Yeah. So do you think there's anything you shouldn't do with PVA apart from squishing that one? There's not something that you shouldn't apart from use the stringers hook links.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Christ. I've used the armor mesh, the mesh.
Oh yes, yeah. The bait covering, the bait protector stuff.
The bait protector mesh that Dave does. I've used that instead of PVA. Why is that still on there then? So yeah, don't do that. But yeah, I think the biggest thing I'd say with people, a lot of people I see, even on lockdown, there's people tying PVA bags up now.
Yeah.
With oily pellets, with the mesh or solid bags and stuff like that. And, when I've found it in the past, I've found a bag, a mesh bag of pellet. And I've dropped it in the edge thinking, I'm just going to see how long that takes. And because it's been sat in that bucket for 3-4 months, it's taken forever to dissolve.
Yeah.
Over, and it's still sat there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is about not putting if you've got an oily mix or oily pellets or anything, don't make your PVA bags up. The more oil that soaks into them, the longer it's there, the longer it takes to do. But the thing I was going to tell you about was I wouldn't worry about residue or anything like that. And this is only because years ago I was lucky enough to fish on Nash's Church Lake.
Yeah.
And I was fishing on there and Steve Renyard was there. and he was zig fishing, and it was back in the days of, you know, zig fishing was just starting to get quite popular and everything, and he was putting the foam nuggets on, but he had put a nugget on and he had squash it right down like you said. Then he had put another nugget round it and cast it out, and I'm looking at it thinking, that's going to take forever to melt and everything. And like 30 seconds, and he's had a take. And I've sat and chatted to him. Now, I mean, Steve's a fantastic angler sort of thing. Watched him on there and everything. And he was convinced that the amount of takes he used to get, not just on bottom bait, zigs or anything, he was convinced that them carp could smell that PVA nugget, and that's what they actually come in. They could smell it. It wasn't a deterrent. It was actually a smell that they liked. And this takes me back to a friend of mine years and years ago I used to fish with. He would outfish everybody on our syndicate water in the 90s. I was on the Baston Fen complex, and the lad there used to work for Enterprise Tackle, so he could get as much fake corn as he wanted. But he would use it once, put it on his rig. When he reeled into change, he would change his fake corn, put it all in a little bag, and then give it away. And he says, you smell it, and it's true. You get a brand new bag of fake corn and open it up and smell it. It's got that real strange chemical plasticky smell. And he was convinced that the carp could smell that, and it was actually an attractor to them. So he changed his fake corn. Obviously, he was getting it for free because he worked there, but he was changing. That's right. But he was changing his corn every time because of that plastic smell. And like I say, since watching Steve catch them fish out of church, which were pressured fish back then, sort of thing, I don't think it matters. I think some of it can go. I've noticed with older PVA, you can get that funny vinegary smell after, if you've got some old stuff sort of thing. You can get that. Now, I don't know about that, but as for scaring the carp, no, I think like the plastic and that, it's just as long as it's not too strong. We all put synthetic smells in our boilies, sort of thing. So as long as it's not overdone, it's just another smell to them, and I think it could be an attractant sort of thing.
Thing is, people worry about sights and smells and all these things for carp and all the rest of it and stuff. But you look how these European anglers fish with their bright red lines and luminous yellow sea line, bowstring tight, to a 6-ounce gripper leads I've seen used. I've seen all sorts of weird and wonderful things. You see the size of the 50mm up baits and stuff like that, and they catch more than the English people do. They try and find everything down and camouflage everything and stuff. Like I say, I've never worried about residue of any sort of PVA, to be honest. I just think it's another thing for you to worry about that you don't need to.
No, definitely. Right, here's a different one for you. Who's influenced your angling the most? So who's made you go out and fish, or who's your sort of like angling hero, if you like?
I don't know. Everybody says the same people though, don't they? I tell you what, I know he's not, an old school angler and all the rest of it, but Darryl Peck, no matter what he does, he can catch big fish.
Yeah.
I know some people hate him and some people like him and stuff like that, but you cannot fault the bloke. No matter where he goes or what he stands in, I want to stand in the same thing. He can catch a big carp from anywhere. I've seen all his videos. He goes to these syndicates in Germany and wherever else that 3 fish come out a year, and he'll have 30, 50 fish, and all the biggies. And you think he's got to be doing something right, or he knows something. They always say they show you everything on these videos, but he's not. To catch that many big fish in the world and have all the big, even like two-tone, from Conningbrook, all the big named fish in the country.
Yeah.
I think if he was around in the earlier days, he would have had all the, all the old original fish.
Yeah, like all the big Yateley fish and stuff like that.
You know, fair play to the mate. He can catch big carp, which that's what I love. You know, I love sitting there, blanking my tits off, waiting for that one big fish.
Yeah.
That's my. I'm more than happy to do that, and you know, but that's what I like. Yeah, but that'd be me. What about yourself, mate?
I would say it's probably got to be. I'd say Rod Hutchinson, but
Nice.
not for the fact of like just picking a big name, if you like. I was lucky enough when I lived at home with my parents. Before I even thought about carp fishing, Rod was my next door neighbour.
Oh, nice.
So, you know, back in the 70s and 80s sort of thing, we lived near him. So I used to sit, before boilies were made, I used to, as a kid sort of thing, I'd hang over the back fence watching him make them outside or in his garage sort of thing, these little round balls and stuff like that sort of thing. So because I sort of grew up with it and bits like that sort of thing, and I've got a few of his old recipe books and bits and pieces. So it's more of a personal rather than, you know, because I knew him as a friend as well as an angler sort of thing. But if I had to pick somebody for actual fishing sort of thing, probably again Mick Brown.
Nice.
Would probably be mine as an all-round angler and just an absolute. He would do anything for you on the bank as well. He goes out. Yes, he makes a living out of it, sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's a hobby. I have learned so. He's such a gifted natural angler, if you like.
Yeah.
And again, living where I live down the road from him, so I got to know him. You know, when he was bringing up his kids on his own and stuff like that sort of thing, he would still go out and bang out big pike, big perch, big carp and everything in between taking the kids to school and stuff like that. Such a natural angler sort of thing. And again, getting to know him as well was a bit different. So sort of thing, probably them two rather than sort of one of your known ones, if you like.
Nice. Very good. Here we go. We've got a question here. When would you use mesh instead of bags? Me personally, I think I'd use mesh when I know what I'm fishing onto, and I'd use a solid bag if I didn't know what I was fishing onto or unsure.
Yeah. For me, I suppose a lot of us we use mesh because it's a lot easier. You just knock the end and away it goes. Sort of thing. I used to love it years ago. I mean, I don't know whether David's looked into it or anything, but one of my favourites years ago, Nash actually made, you know, the solid PVA bags, but on a tube, so you could get it in 10-metre lengths.
Yeah, I remember them.
Sort of thing. And the thing I liked about that, I now use our smaller, you know, our solid bags. When I want to, if I'm fishing in deep water, especially in France, if I'm fishing in water and I want that hook bait to stand up above and then go down slowly, I'll make a solid bag and then just pop a little hole in the top of it, hook my hook and that on the bottom and drop it in. So I know I drop that to the bottom, but that bag is still 18 inches off the bottom.
Oh yeah.
So what I end up doing is I'll drop the lead and everything down. As soon as I feel that lead hit the bottom, I'll lift the bag up quickly, lift the lead up quickly, knowing that bag's still floating, and it just lays it. It gives me them few seconds to lay everything flat, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
Sort of thing. So
yeah, I remember those bags on a tube. They were funny, weren't they?
Yeah, I used to just like them, and I used to use them a lot for floater fishing. Put a lot of small pellets in them, put your chum mixer on your hook it on, cast it out, and it'd pop and float just behind your hook bait, sort of thing.
The ones, the only place I've ever seen them, I think it was Tackle Box did them, but they did 5 kilo PVA bags.
Yes,
They were amazing. Like I said, I remember seeing a video years ago, somebody fishing on the Ebro for catfish, and they would just get this brick and just drop it and just dump.
Yeah, I've still got a few in the shed, and that's where they come from. You know, you get about a kilo of 22mm pellets in them.
Nice.
Sort of thing. So, right, it's time's clocking on, so we'll make this the last one. Right, here we go, Christian. What's your most extreme trip away and why?
Well, we did touch on earlier on, but mine was the River Lot. Not last year before it was. I did 14 nights on there with the family. I was fishing, and I thought I'm going to solidly fish it. Turned up, the owner said, "Oh, it's fishing all right. You know, the river's running nicely." Turned up, a small hurricane hit. Woke up in the morning from the house, got outside. There was trees going past. The river had gone up about 1 meter. They'd opened the flood defences up. So the flow, you've never seen flow like it. And you could only fish the carp all sat on the far margin, which is about 7 foot deep. If you fished halfway, you just got catfish. So you had to fish that far margin, which was 150 yards. But when you've got a flow that literally was like that, you know, it was shifting. So yeah, first couple of drops I did with the boat, but I didn't even get 20 yards. It ripped the 12-ounce lead I was using. It was down the river. So I ended up going to, what was it? I was using 50-pound braid, 50-pound mono shock leader, 50-pound hook links, 24 ounces of lead that I'd got these big circular gripper leads, and I'd zip tied them together.
Yep.
So I had 24 ounces of lead to hold the bottom, and then I was using 12-ounce back leads of the same gripper leads. But you had to kind of drop your rig, then you had to go 100 yards up the river, and then come back down to your swim. And then as soon as you got in your swim, take the slack up, pull it, and your rod tips literally just as soon as you could feel it taking the tension, they were just bending, and they'd sit like this. It just hold there, and you're thinking, please don't pull, and that's where they sat. And like I said, the bites were literally, you were just sat there, and you get one bleep, and the rod would go boing, completely straight. But then you're trying to fight the tide, and like I said, I had this 35 common, like a torpedo it was. And I would have said I had a 100-pound cat on.
Cool.
It took me so long to get in. It was just sitting in the current. But yeah, crazy, absolutely crazy fishing. But yeah, did 14 nights on there.
Cool, dear.
But yeah, that was the most extreme one I've ever did. But yeah, amazing. Like I said, I've never even fished a river before because I live on the Isle of Wight. Not really got a river. You know, we've got the sea, go shark fishing, I suppose. But yeah, we've got nothing like that. So I kind of chucked myself in the deep end and learned as I went along, to be honest. But it was an amazing trip, amazing place.
I suppose for me, I would have to pick one of the, for extreme, probably one of the early ones. I was lucky enough to find out about Cassine, like the Saint de Castellan, right back in the early days in like the mid 80s. And I passed my test. Everybody was, 2 lads that I was going with, fingers crossed that I passed my test in 1987. So I'm 17. I've just sort of, we've only been in carp fishing like a couple of years. Most things back then, if you wanted it in carp fishing, you had to make for yourself. You couldn't buy ready-made boilies or anything. So I'm 17. I've passed my test 2 weeks, and 3 of us drove to the south of France for 21 days, 3 weeks, and we took everything in the kitchen sink. We didn't know what. It took us about 27 hours back then. I'd got an old Morris Marina and a trailer. We had to take sort of like all our bait making gear because we didn't know. There wasn't really bivvies back then, so we'd got brollies with plastic sheeting round, sort of thing. Big bed chairs, blow up beds, boats. We took everything, not knowing anything about down there. We took loads of canned food with us. We took water with us because we didn't know what you could get. So we literally took everything in the kitchen sink for 3 weeks for 3 of us in this Morris Marina, and it was absolutely epic. I mean, my biggest fish, I've been carp fishing like 2 years, so my biggest was like 18 pound. My mate's was like 22, and the experienced lad with us, he'd been carp fishing 3 years and he'd had a 24 sort of thing. So you can just imagine it was like something totally out of a road trip comedy horror movie. It really was.
But it probably made you as an angler, though, didn't it?
Oh man, I wouldn't change it for the world, sort of thing. And you're there, and the first night the rod's gone off, and I've got 1.75 pound glass rods, and the rod's gone over, sort of. And I've played this thing for like 45 minutes, and I've had a 45. I'd never seen a fish over 24 pound. And this thing come up in the water, apart from pictures of Uchi and that outlet, this thing's come up in the water, and I'm like, what is it? I've managed to get it in a 36-inch landing net, totally unprepared. We've got it in the bottom of a boat. It's filled the bottom of the blow-up boat, and it was memories that you couldn't tell a trip like it unless you've been, sort of thing. It was crazy. Absolutely crazy, but worth every minute. Right. So right, that's everything. Well, thank you for inviting everybody on Castaway, and thank you everybody for tuning in, and thanks for helping us out, Christian. And
it was good to have a chat.
Yeah, really enjoyed it, and hopefully we've answered a few, waffled on for a while, and answered a few questions for a few people.
Yeah, definitely. Right.
Lovely. Yeah, everybody stay safe, and hopefully see you on the bank sometime.